exactly it. Yeah, from our OLTP, eventually over to Redshift. But it's really for any kind of like scheduled tasks, especially where you like need to talk to multiple different resources that you can use Airflow for. So, for instance, like in the lab, instead of go to your OLTP database every week, right? Maybe it's hit an API, right? Like, make the request to an API and maybe load that into a database, right? You can use that for Airflow. Or you can scrape a web page every week or every day, right? So, any of these kind of, scheduled services, like that's a good use for Airflow. Another kind of, I guess, like more in its sweet spot is things that have to be sequential, where like here it's pull from here, load to S3, then do this, right? Make sure the first one succeeds, then do the second one, then do the third one. Like that's really like, Airflow's kind of sweet spot, as we mentioned, like the DAGs, the directed acyclic graph, right? The fact that it does not come back around. It's just a series of tasks. So that's really like the use case for Airflow. And for us, what we're mainly using it for is like this ETL process, which is pretty typical. But like I said, you can hook it into different things. In terms of working with it, remember like we have this Docker Compose file. I guess we have it here. Let me start sharing again. So we have the Docker Compose file, and we said like this is kind of like a mix-in, or you can also think of it as like inheritance, right? That we're taking this Airflow common thing and we're mixing it into here. All right, so you're basically taking all the YAML, all these specified, for instance, environmental variables right here, right? And kind of in the volumes, and they're immediately, they're placed into like the Airflow web server, right? And we also said the main thing that we to pay attention to in this file is the volumes, right? The idea is we have this DAGs library, and anything we put on our laptop or wherever Airflow is running, right? In theory, you could run this on AWS, like on an AWS EC2 instance, or AWS actually has like a service that allows, that kind of has Airflow installed already. But wherever you're running Airflow, you would have a DAGs folder, and that will connect, right? Be bind mounted into this opt Airflow DAGs folder in Airflow. Okay. To boot it up, right, you just do the Docker Compose up, and then you can see let's take a look. So if I do Docker Compose PS, you can see I already have it running, right? The main thing we care about is the web server. These are different services, right? You can kind of see this is the Postgres database. This is Redis is used for like queuing data, right? Like one task after the other, for example. It's another kind of database. The scheduler probably is what, is, keeping time and saying, okay, it's time now ready. I don't actually know, I'm just guessing. And then the web server is our interface, right? Is, when we go to Airflow here and we see Airflow, that's the web server. Okay? Let me delete this stuff. I thought I did. All right, so if we want to like create a DAG with Airflow, what we do is we can just place it in one of these files. This is not exactly what I wanted. Yeah, sorry. Let me do one of these. I guess I didn't save my edits. Okay, let's remove this for now. This is my notes. And instead we'll just show what we did last time. So what we did was we had to, create a DAG. Remember, this is like our directed acyclic graph, and each DAG consists of many tasks, right? This like task 1, and then we have like task 2. Right? So the first task might be pull data from RDS. Then the second task might be upload that data to S3. Right? All of them are part of the same workflow or DAG, right? They're all part of this grouping. So what we need to do is we create a DAG. Let's call this our hello DAG. We give it a DAG ID, so that's just a string. We give it the start date. The start date is, when should this thing have started? Generally, it's a time in the past. You can see, remember before last time I did like a date time of like a year ago, and then it tried to catch up by running one for every day. For this time interval of every day, I'm going to call this hello DAG function. A smarter way to do this is you take the current date, and then we use this time delta. And we say, let's do it for the current day minus 1 day. All right, so this is automatically 1 day in the past. So we created this kind of overall structure with this hello DAG, and the next thing is the task. So let's do this. So we'll call this my hello task. These variables don't really have too much significance. They're really only relevant inside the file. When we look at the DAG in Airflow and you see like hello DAG, that's coming from this. That's coming from this string. Task ID, we just have to call hello. We have to associate the task with the DAG, right? We need to associate this underneath this, and we do that by referencing this variable. Okay. And finally, what we're saying is, when we run this DAG, first we'll run this task, and what we want to do is call a Python function. So we'll call this hello world or whatever. And then here, and then somewhere in this file, we can define hello world. And then return hello everyone. Okay. So again, we kind of define a DAG. We had to give it a DAG ID, the start date, right, which we just said, okay, is today minus 1 day, so 1 day in the past. So this means it should have run like kind of once immediately, and then we associate a task with it. Remember, the other thing we can do is we can actually associate multiple tasks. So to do that, we could do this goodbye. Sorry about that. And then call it something else. Still want to associate it with the same DAG, right? Because now it's going to be this sequence. And then finally, we want to call a function by everyone, right? And then define the function. All right, cool. So now we can go to Airflow. We'll see if we see this thing. Oh, here it is. Let's take a look. One other thing I like to do just to make sure like everything has been updated. If you go to, I think, details? No. What I was looking for, here it is, code. Sometimes it's good just to make sure that Airflow is like synced and like uploaded all of our code. So if you can see what I did, I clicked on the DAG, and then over to the right, I clicked on code. And then here, oh look, it doesn't have everything, does it? So let's, we can refresh this. And now it does, right? Now you see this by everyone. And we forgot something, didn't we? We should impose a sequence of this task comes first, and then this task comes second. And the way we do that is with the double caret. So it's hello task, followed by goodbye task. And then we can refresh, see if it caught it. It did not. Did I? But we can, the other thing we can do is refresh the DAG bag. I always forget how to do that. What we need to do is, to sh into the web server. So we'll do Docker Compose, Airflow Notes, Airflow Web Server, exec-it. It's actually not Docker Compose, just exec-it. So Docker exec-it, the name of our container, followed by bash. Right? Now we're in Airflow, and you can see we have this DAGs folder, and we can look up refresh DAG bag, and we can just run this thing, this line. And I like this because it gives me an error message right away, if this thing doesn't work. All right, so you can see it's filling up the DAG bag. Then let's go back here and maybe see, and now we can see that this has been updated, right, with our code. So everything looks pretty good. We can go to DAGs. If you want, you can just unpause this, right? We can also trigger it if we're impatient, which often I am. So we can click on this, and you can see here are 2 tasks, right? And then let's trigger it by pressing play. Okay, and then we should see, let's go to graph view. Yeah, so you can see this one's running, and now this one's about to run. That one just ran, right? When it's green, it succeeds, and then the next one. And you can click on any one of these, and then click on log, and see what kind of occurred. So here you can see, here's my hello task, and we have the return value, right? Was hello everyone. Okay, so this is all review, right? You can do the same thing, obviously, with the goodbye one. Click on it, and then go to log, and then see what happened. Call by, return value is by everyone. Okay, questions about this before we move on? All right, so here's the next thing, which is kind of remember like what we want to do ultimately is have Airflow connect. If this is like Airflow is in the center here, right? We want it to connect to these different services. Okay. So this brings us into like a feature of Airflow called connections. So let's see that. So what you can do is you go to admin, then you click on connections, all right? And we want to add a new connection, so that we click on this plus sign of add new record. And what we want is we want a connection to our RDS instance, all right? So we can call this anything we want. This is the connection ID. We'll see in a second that will refer to this. Here we're going to have to specify like what type of service are we connecting to. What works to connect both Redshift and RDS, you want to specify the Postgres service, okay? And then what we want to do is this is what, and I can give you guys this info. You can connect to my RDS. It has the data you need. So we want to specify, right, like the endpoint, which is the host, right? The schema is actually the name of the database. So we're going to connect to the Postgres database. The user is, I think, also Postgres, and the password is going to be Jigsaw Labs. All right, and the port is 5432. What I like to do when I'm doing this is first I like to connect through the command line, you know, with the PSQL statement, if I have it. Maybe I don't. So for instance, it'll be like PSQL-H or --host. Say --host. -u, the user, is Postgres. And then try out the password. Now I'm in, right? So now I just confirm all my information is correct, right? And you can see that we have these tables, including the states table here. So let's save this. Okay, and now we've just created a new connection that has this connection ID of RDS. So, okay, so here's the next thing we want to do is essentially just refer to this connection in our code. All right. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is instead of calling, so we already have this DAG. We can rename it if we want. We can call it like, you know, pull data. We'll just keep the same start time. And what do we want to have happen? At the kind of proper time, let's select our states, and that will be associated with the same DAG, And then finally, when it occurs, when this task gets run, we want to run, like, let's say, like the select states function. Okay, so let's turn this to be select states. All right. So you can see what I've imported here. I have this Airflow hooks. I don't know why they give it two different names. There's connections and hooks to refer to the same thing. It's nice. We're importing this Postgres hook. This is a class, right? The same way this, by the way, is a class. We're initializing an instance of a Python operator. We're initializing an instance of a DAG. Here we're initializing an instance of a Postgres connection. So in here, we can connect. I think here's where we specify that RDS ID. Okay, so we're saying, what do we want to actually connect to? Let's call this my RDS hook. It doesn't really matter. But this thing right here, this is important. This part right here needs to match up with this connection ID. All right, that's the link right there. And then once you've created that hook, you can do RDS hook dot get records. It is get records. And then we can do whatever we want. Select all from states. Let's call these my values, and we'll just return this. Okay, so this is how, in theory, let's hope it works, we can, from Postgres, from Airflow, say like every day, for example, I want to call this Python function, and this Python function connects to my RDS database, my transactional database, and selects the data. Right from there, we could, hopefully upload that data to S3 or move it to Redshift, and the labs will walk you through that. Okay, so let's refresh our DAG bag if we can. Okay, so we're execing into the container with bash, and then from here we'll refresh the DAG bag. We should have created a new DAG called pull data. Let's see if we have any errors. Looks pretty good. So we go back to DAGs, and now here's this new thing, right? Let's look at it, I guess. All right, so it just has this one task, select states. We can make sure the code is there, right? There's the code. That looks pretty good. Let's unpause it and even trigger. Let's just trigger it. I may have to unpause it for it to actually start running. We'll see. Let's go back to Airflow. Oh, there it goes. See, it's running. The unpause is like, if you do unpause and it's like has a time interval of 1 day, it will make sure that it runs every day, right? Let's click on this run. See what's, that's not fun. Oh, there we go. So it ran twice. One because it was scheduled to run, because it said, hey, we should have already run this 1 day in the past, yesterday. And then the second time it ran is because we triggered the DAG. We did that trigger button thing. Okay, and it looks successful. Let's take a look. So we'll click on the DAG ID. We can see here's the task. And then we have the log. And then let's take a look. Here's the return value. Here's all my states. I guess we only have 3. But this is from our Foursquare data. Okay, so you can see like we were able to connect to our RDS, and like I said, from there we'll also show how to connect to Redshift. It's very similar, and then also connect to S3. I think the S3 one is kind of tricky. We'll see if we can get it. Meaning you'll see if you can get it. But I think if you don't get it, you at least kind of understand how this works. Okay, anything to go back through or review with this? No?